Today's first reading is responsive. Please join me. See, I will create with new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind.
Be glad and rejoice forever, and what I will create. For I will create Jerusalem to be a delight, and its people a joy.
I will rejoice over Jerusalem and take delight in my people. The sound of weeping and of crying will be heard no more.
Never again will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not dwell out his years. The one who dies at 100 will be thought a mere child. The one who fails to reach 100 will be considered accursed.
They will build houses and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit.
No longer will they build houses and others live in them, or plant and others eat. For as the days of the tree, so will be the days of my people, my chosen ones who will long to enjoy the work of their hands.
They will not labor in vain, nor will their bear children doomed to misfortune. For they will be a people blessed by the Lord, they and their descendants with them.
Before they all I will answer, while they are still speaking, I will hear.
The wolf and the lamb will feed together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox, and dust will be the serpent's food. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord.
I've been held by the Savior. I felt fire from above. I've been down to the river. I ain't the same, a prodigal return. So all my hope is in Jesus. Thank God yesterday's gone. All my sins are forgiven. I've been washed by the blood. I found no hope in my prison. I've worn shackles and chains, but I've been free and forgiven. Yes, I have. I'm not going back. I'll never be the same. So, all my hope is in Jesus. Thank God yesterday's gone. And all my sins are forgiven. I've been washed by the blood. I've been washed by the blood. I've been washed by the blood.
Amen. All right, let us hear these words now from Luke chapter 21, verses 5 through 19. And here we go. Some of his disciples were remarking about how the temple was adorned with beautiful stones and with gifts dedicated to God. But Jesus said, "As for what you see here, the time will come when not one stone will be left on another. Every one of them will be thrown down." "Teacher," they asked, "when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to take place?" He replied, "Watch out that you are not deceived. For many will come in my name, claiming, 'I am he,' and 'the time is near.' Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and revolutions, do not be frightened. These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name. This will result in your being witnesses to them. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves. For I will give you words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents, relatives, brothers, sisters, and friends. They will put some of you to death. All people will hate you because of me, but not a hair of your head will perish. By standing firm, you will win life." And may God add God's blessing to that reading from His holy word. Amen. So yesterday we were at the Presbytery meeting. It was on Zoom, and I was reminded of the Presbytery's theme for this year. The theme for this year is stubborn hope. Think about that, stubborn hope. So what does it mean when you put those two words together? Stubborn and hope. So stubborn can have kind of a negative ring to it, right? As in, she's so stubborn. But not when you put it before the word hope, right? It kind of changes the meaning a little bit, right? It's even a good thing to be stubborn when it comes before hope, right? Stubborn hope. In fact, being stubborn may be the key to letting that sense of hope loose in the world. Or where have you put down your foot lately? Put down your foot and declare that stubborn hope is going to rule the day. Where have you been stubborn lately? In a good way. So we're going to talk about the painting on the front of your bulletin, and my bulletin's over there. Oh well, that's okay. But before we do that, we're going to talk about another painting that Don has on the TV. This is a piece of art. Now Don didn't know this until I told him it was a piece of art. He thought it was just your regular old church bulletin board. But it's not. This is found at the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. Don's going to show. So there it is on the screen. So it falls into the category of stubborn hope. I know you probably can't read it, but I'm going to read it for you. So this is a piece of art. It was done by a woman named Erica Rothenberg. And it might not seem like art, but if you've ever strolled through a museum of modern art, you know that there are some odd things in these museums. I went to the Pittsburgh Museum of Art, and the modern art ring, it was truly amazing. It was just fascinating. But anyway, this is a piece of art, and it's a simple church signboard that you hang on the wall. And it's got the same kind of white plastic letters that we use actually on the sign outside, right? So we're going to be getting 2 new signs pretty soon. I think you probably noticed that one of the signs fell down, but that's okay because we've been working on these new signs. I doubt our new signs are ever going to end up in a museum, but you never know, right? So this sign is, so you see it hanging outside in the hallway of a church office. It tells the schedule of meetings at the church for the coming week. And then on Sunday it lists the sermon title. That's kind of a bigger letter. Maybe you can read that. So it says, at the top, it says, evenings at 7 in the parish hall. And then going down the board, the same kind of white lettering you see, it says, Monday, Alcoholics Anonymous. Tuesday, abused spouses. Wednesday, eating disorders. Thursday, say no to drugs. Friday, teen suicide watch. And Saturday, soup kitchen. And then at the bottom of the board, it tells you what the Sunday sermon title is, which is Sunday Sermon 9 a.m., America's Joyous Future. So just think about that. So what impression do you think people get when they see this piece of art? I don't know. I guess it would depend if you're part of a church family or not. I think that would make a big difference. Do you think it says something favorable about churches? Like I'm not saying one way or the other. Does it say that the church is trying to help these people in these meetings? And how well is the church doing at giving people hope? So how well is the church doing at standing firm with that stubborn hope that could get us through a lot when the going gets rough, right? So there is that piece of art, and I don't know what she meant by it. We'd have to ask her, Erica Rothenberg, but I think it's interesting. So, both of our Bible readings today are about hope, right? Isaiah 65, which we read responsively, was written after the Babylonians, they come in, they rampage Israel, destroy a lot of stuff, send people into exile. Remember the story, they go into exile in what was then Persia, and then they get to come back, and so they had a lot of hope. So the people have returned, but life just isn't quite what they dreamed of. They need to rebuild their houses, they need to replant their crops, they need to deal with more invasions, warring armies coming in, and financial hardship, all these things. And they have to put dinner on the table. They had high hopes for their new lives, and now they're facing new challenges. But what a beautiful picture was imagined for them in Isaiah's writing. Jerusalem as a delight, right? Its people a joy, blessed by God, and all those animals getting along just fine. I wore my Noah's Ark stole just for that. All those animals, got the animals on there. So in Isaiah, it's the wolf and the lion, aka the enemies of Israel, right? These animals are symbolic. They saw their enemies like wolves, like lions, all these big armies coming in. But they're acting a bit out of character by letting those lambs alone. So that's the vision of stubborn hope that Isaiah gave to the people. And that's the vision of stubborn hope that God has always offered and is still offering us today. So now look at the cover of your bulletin. And you've got a vision of this reading from Isaiah. So this was painted by Edward Hicks, who was a Quaker minister from Pennsylvania, and he painted it around 1834. His inspiration, you might imagine, was the prophet Isaiah. So we do have Isaiah 11, remember that one? And the little child shall lead them. We often read that during Advent. And of course, also Isaiah 65 that we just read. So, all these animals who would normally not get along with each other, they're just kind of hanging out together. And as I said, they represent all the different peoples of the world being able to get along together. And because this is 1834, look back in the left-hand corner in the background, what do you see? The newcomers to America are talking with the Native Americans. There's that stubborn hope that they're going to be able to work things out and get along together. So how are we at getting along with all of God's creatures? I picked up a copy of the Upper Room devotional for November and December. I encourage you to do that. We had a lot left over for September and October. So it really is pretty good. And I found there's a devotional that was, I think, for November 8th that I thought that you all could relate to. and it has to do with animals. So the name of it is called The Love of a Cat. And I know many of you are cat people. Raise your hand if you're a cat person. A lot of cat people, Jan. You see, look at all these cat people in there. Dan even adopted that cat. Still got it. So I thought of it also with The Peaceable Kingdom. So it was written by Ken Roberts, and he says he was never a cat person, and then this little hungry kitten showed up at his door, and he gave the kitten a meatball, he says. And it was never quite the same since then. He had never quite understood how God could love all of us despite the crazy things that we do until he adopted this kitten. He writes, no matter what she did, like run away, push me away, all the annoying things cats do, I didn't care because I loved her so much. So isn't that it in a nutshell? God puts up with all the annoying things that we do because God loves us so much. And the skeptic in me wants to ask, well, God, if you love us so much, why do all these bad things have to happen, right? So that's a classic question for the ages. It is. That's like, you know, if we had the answer to that, we'd be like, woo, the sage of all time. So this conversation between Jesus and the disciples outside the temple can help us out. That's the Luke 21. So they were looking for hope. We have a lot in common with those disciples. They were looking for encouragement. They wanted answers. They wanted some tips for living, like we all do, right? So Jesus starts out by telling them that their beautiful temple is not going to be there forever. And of course they want to know the details, and he gives them the traditional end-of-time answer, because in their world, the end of the temple was just about as tragic as the end of time itself, which will be marked by false claims made by people who are deceptive, and lots of conflict and wars and natural disasters and earthquakes and famine. Goes on and on and on. Whew, too much. Because it sounds too familiar, right? It does sound too familiar in our worlds today. But I think that's only because the world has always been chaotic and always will be chaotic until Jesus comes again. There's always been a lot of chaos in our world. So, speaking of chaos, there's just a little tiny bit of chaos here on Election Day. As you probably know, Faith Church was a polling place. That's not permanent because it's going to be back at the high school, as I understand it, but they're having construction down there, so they asked if they could come here, and we said, sure, because we want to be open to the community. So there were lots of people here, and there was a guy named Roger, and he told me his job was to be a floater. He said he wanted to stop problems from happening before they happened. So I said, well, that's great. That sounds good to me. So a few minutes later, he comes back into the office to ask, what's the maximum capacity of the parlor? And I was like, I was going to text Paul, but I said, no, I'm not going to bother him. But there really weren't that many people in the parlor. There were just two really long lines kind of going out the door, but there weren't like people packed. I thought, well, it looks fine to me. So then a few minutes later, he came back in and he said, and he was worried that people would start parking on the grass. And he didn't want them to destroy our lawn. And I thanked him for that. And Susan called the Lutherans across the street, and they were very nice, and they said that yes, people could park over there. They were worried about the people crossing the street, but they could park over there for overflow parking. Another potential problem averted. So all in all, it was a really good day. And a few other people came into the office. Like there was one woman who told me she was thinking about coming back to church, and could I explain to her the difference between Presbyterian and Catholic? And I said, sure, I can do that. So I did that. And then somebody else stopped in and said how neat it was to be here again, as his children had come here to preschool 30 years ago. And it brought back so many good memories. So that was nice. And then Christy Gunther stopped in. Now, Christy was the church secretary here for 20 years. she told me. I had never met her. And I think she said beginning when Bill Graham was pastor here in the mid-'80s, right? And she said how she loved working here, what a great group of people she got to meet, how fun it was. And Susan was standing right there, and I'm like, yeah, give a good plug. And maybe Susan will stay here for 20 years, right? So now, it was really good. It was a good day. It was a good day. So anyway, Jesus' conversation with the disciples. Here's the clincher, okay? After describing all these terrible things that were going to happen, Jesus says, stand firm and you will win life. Now this Bible said, I think, gay life, but the version I don't know what yours in the pew says, but mine said win life. So in the midst of all these terrible things that are going to happen, if you stand firm, you will win life. So I thought, I was kind of thinking about that. What does that really mean? It sounds like a one-shot deal, the way that Jesus said it. Either you win life or you lose it. You know, kind of like a pinball, a video game or something like that. But I call my sermon winning at life. Now, think about the difference there. Winning life versus winning at life. To me, winning at life makes it sound more like an ongoing kind of thing. Like day to day, we're working on this. We do this kind of work. Winning at life also means being willing to lose it. Being willing to say, I'm not in control, to let go and let God. And that's really hard. I am not good at that, I'll tell you. But I don't know what else the answer is. If we're not willing to lose it, to let go and to let God, then we're living on our own terms. We're not living on God's terms, right? And that's really, really tough. You know, and I certainly have not figured that out yet. So the good news is that we don't have all the answers, right? That's no new thing. The disciples were a bit clueless. We can be clueless too. That's not a bad thing. It's better to be clueless than to think we have the answers, I think, yes. So Jesus told the disciples he would give them words and wisdom. So that sounds like a good plan to me. I'll take all the words and wisdom that Jesus wants to dole out. Which for now, Jesus' words and wisdom are stand firm, trust, and cling tight to that stubborn hope. And keep on winning at life today and into all of our tomorrows. Amen.
Hallelujah.